from litigating, but not individuals from litigating.
Well, and in Minnesota, for instance, Blue Cross Blue Shield, the largest insurer in that state, much like here, engaged in that litigation with the state, and I believe they were part of the settlement that was reached there. And the theory, of course, is that if the tobacco companies had been honest with us since right after World War II, when they knew that tobacco was addictive and dangerous to our health, we wouldn't have had these tremendous health costs through Medicare and Medicaid and the insurance companies taking care of the people that the tobacco industry decided that they could kill or injure for their profits.
Okay, we have to take a break right now. We will be back to further this discussion in just a moment on Report to Wyoming.
And
we are back on Report to Wyoming, talking about the tobacco problems in this country and the tobacco litigation, as the tobacco settlement and the tobacco bill in Congress. They are all intertwined right now. Basically what it boils down to is a group of states, it ended up being 40 states, came up with a settlement with the tobacco companies because of the cost that the states themselves incurred in medical expenses with Medicare and Medicaid for people's illnesses from smoking. That now is up in the air because it has to go through Congress. Attorney General Bill Hill and Frank Chapman are joining us from Cheyenne today, and the Attorney General says now we have gotten some money in a minor settlement from one of the smaller companies, about $1 million over 10 years. Will that come anywhere close to paying what the state of Wyoming has paid out in medical expenses?
oh no, Wes, no, that's just a tiny fraction. The formulas that, and there were 3 or 4 formulas under consideration for dividing the $368 billion. There was the figures settled upon by the major companies and the attorneys general. The formulas that we were looking at that time all indicated that Wyoming's share of that amount of money would have been well in excess of 100 billion, or 100 million, I'm sorry. So no, that's the Liggett & Myers portion, and Liggett & Myers is a very minor player, but that would be just a fraction of what we would ultimately expect to share if there's a global settlement, or if in fact we have to litigate.
Wyoming could have gotten $100 billion off of...
No.
No,
No,
100 million.
100 million with an M, okay.
Right.
The question I have, Bill, is a couple things. $1 million paid out over 10 years isn't very much money. If you base it on present value, it sounds to me like it's maybe worth $150,000 settlement.
I got to stress again, it's a very small tobacco concern.
It is, and with the fact that our people in the state of Wyoming have been damaged sufficiently enough, why aren't we filing suit in our courts, bringing these people in here to answer for the lies and the deception and the health problems they've caused the people of our state, and bring them into our courts and have them processed here? It won't take nearly as long as these big states. It won't take as long as Congress is going to hassle around there with all the congressmen and the senators who take money from tobacco companies and the tobacco lobbies. This thing's going to drag on and on and on. I've got a feeling if we take it in front of our court systems and our people and our judges, we're going to get justice for Wyoming people, and we're going to do it fairly quickly, because we have people who are being hurt all the time.
Well, and there are a variety of reasons that I must proceed cautiously, and give me a chance to lay them all out for you.
Sure.
For one thing, it's a matter of resources. It is not an easy matter to go before the Wyoming legislature and ask them to appropriate money to fund major litigation. I am still trying to get the money to pay for water litigation that was initiated in 1976 and water litigation that was initiated in 1986. And it is a question of resources, because you do not undertake a piece of litigation like this cavalierly, and I'm sure you would agree with that. It's also a matter of wondering why we should spend those resources reinventing the wheel. We have access to everything that is coming forward out of the lawsuits that are going forward right now. So it is not a matter of us having to go to the expense, perhaps, of resources we don't have readily available to discover these matters when it's already happening and we're sharing in that information. Another reason is you do not litigate with big tobacco without some risk. While everybody knows about the 4 states that have settled their cases with big tobacco, and I stress that, these were not jury findings, these were settlements. No one seems to be talking about Iowa, for example, where the Iowa Supreme Court recently threw out the biggest part of Iowa's case against big tobacco on a standing argument. So there is a certain amount of risk. I don't know what Iowa's situation is. I guess Iowa now has to hope that there's some sort of global settlement, or they will not participate the way that they might have under the proposed settlement put forward by the attorneys general. We believe right now that the responsible way to proceed is to monitor this litigation, to monitor any sort of proposed global settlement, and make certain that if, in fact, one of those is a settlement is to occur, that Wyoming is going to participate fully, whether or not it litigates. And until we see what shakes out in Congress, it seems to me that prudence dictates that we keep our powder dry and see what happens.
Well, and let me explain to you what's happened to some of the states that have gone forward now with private counsel. They've hired them on a contingent fee basis, which means that the lawyers representing, for instance, the state of Texas, got a percentage of the settlement that they made for the state of Texas down there. Now, there were 12 law firms involved in that litigation for the state of Texas. They spent out of their own pockets millions and millions of dollars preparing that suit for trial, ultimately settled the case, and I believe the attorney's fee alone was going to be approximately $2 billion under the contingent fee agreement that Texas made with those 12 law firms. And now, of course, Governor Bush in Texas wants to renege on that agreement, and the entire settlement now is in jeopardy because the state wants to renege on the agreement it had with its lawyers. Congress is trying to put caps on how much lawyers can charge representing the states or the insurance companies or others in tobacco litigation. If the state of Wyoming can save 1/3 or 20% plus expenses of the litigation, I think that's a good deal, General. On the other hand, if Congress continues to tear up the settlement and the deal falls apart, we think that you ought to consider hiring some Wyoming lawyers to pursue this on behalf of Wyoming. And you know, I agree with you. In the federal district court in Wyoming, this case, if it were brought next week, would be tried and over with within a year from now.
Well, and while I haven't talked to Dallas or Frank, I can tell you that I have been in touch with a variety of Wyoming attorneys, and there are certain contingency plans that we're looking at, and I'd just like to reassure you that I don't think we're overlooking any eventuality. We're just trying to proceed as prudently as we can, given the resources that we have to work with.
Well, it sounds though like it's a very conservative approach, Bill, and I'm not faulting you for taking a conservative approach, but you know, some people in this country liken the tobacco company to drug dealers, and we don't take conservative approach. Our government doesn't take conservative approach to people who are putting out products that are killing our youth and hooking our youth and endangering our entire society. To me, this is more important than any water litigation from 1976 or any of these other things where you're asking the legislature for money. What's happening is our people are being damaged and injured, and they're dying deaths that they that shouldn't be happening to them as a result of this product. And it's time someone took an aggressive, fast-track approach to stop this kind of thing from happening and to expose what these people have been doing to our country and our people for years.
Well, and in addition to being the original drug pushers, these cigarette companies invented spin. You know, when the Surgeon General started coming out nearly 20 years ago to talk about the dangers of smoking, the cigarette companies did a couple of things. First, they attacked the messengers. They ridiculed them, they accused them of lying, they phonied up their own studies to try and prove that tobacco was safe, and they even went so far as to allege that smoking was safe for pregnant women, which we all know is ludicrous at this time. The cigarette companies knew it too, and they promoted their products knowing that they were killing us. And someone's going to have to make them pay. You know, I'm not sure that money alone is going to be enough.
Well, I know Bill Hill to be a very good man, and I'm not suggesting anything about him personally, but I think politics being what they are, people who can go down to the legislature, hire lobbyists, talk to the legislature about, you know, going slow, taking an easy approach, gee, we're going to pay, we're going to do this, and nothing ever happens in our lifetime. You know, we still allow children to go into smoking sections of restaurants in this state. Little children who can do nothing but go in and sit down and be subjected to smoke. In Canada, now they're printing on their packages of cigarettes in Canada that secondary smoke is killing people, which it is. We're doing nothing about helping and protecting the people of the state of Wyoming, and taking a back seat and an attitude of let's see what happens, let's not spend any money. We have people dying, people being injured, more people being hooked and addicted to nicotine, and it just isn't right.
Dallas, that's very provocative. I don't think that's accurate. As I've described, a great many things are happening. It just doesn't happen to be litigation, and it doesn't have to be litigation for us to participate in a meaningful way in what's going on with tobacco. On another occasion, I'd be happy to come back and debate with you whether the Clinton administration is being aggressive with illegal drugs, because I don't frankly believe that administration is. But be that as it may, I think things are happening. I don't think litigation is necessarily the end all to be certain that you're participating in this debate and in its ultimate conclusion. I would also say this, maybe a program like this or 2 or 3 programs like this will change it. But the fact of the matter is, I hear from many people in Wyoming who don't like the idea of a tobacco settlement. They didn't like the proposal the AG's made. They don't like the McCain bill. They take the attitude that they knew 50 years ago that tobacco would kill them, and they don't understand what Congress is about. I've got to admit, I'm not sure I understand it either, but you have to understand that the sentiment that you express on this program is not universal in Wyoming.
Well, see,
and this is a very
that sentiment, though, Frank, that what he's just talking about, that sentiment is something because a lot of our people have been brainwashed, including me, over the years by tobacco companies. And once you get hooked on a drug like this, and this education goes on to tie love and sex into tobacco and smoking and making children look older and all of that kind of thing, it's a very subtle billion-dollar business that helps brainwash our people. And so, yes, they go around saying, gee whiz, this is great, cigarette smoking is great, it's all my fault and I shouldn't do anything, yet they don't know that the tobacco companies are spiking these cigarettes with excess nicotine and other things to get youthful people hooked so that they smoke for 40 or 50 years. And so they have a mindset that's like people back in the Middle Ages when they thought the world was flat. They were killing people that would come and say the world is round. So just because we have people who are still hanging on to antiquated modes of thinking doesn't mean that the people that are in charge of our state and the protection of the public and the people in our state shouldn't take a very quick and corrective action here.
Okay, we are almost out of time. Let me jump in. Bill, I want to ask you, where do you think we will be in the state 5 years from now and 10 years from now with this? Will we be getting some bucks?
Oh, I think so, Wes. And I would have to say that if there is not some movement in Congress to effect some sort of global settlement, then obviously our option becomes, if we're going to share in this settlement of this matter, it's going to have to be through litigation.
Okay, I want to thank Bill Hill for joining us today, the Attorney General, and our legal team, Dallas Laird in Casper with me, and Frank Chapman down in Cheyenne today at some attorney kind of meetings. And gentlemen, thank you again very much, and thank you for joining us on Report to Wyoming.
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you.
We'll be on the air down there. Yeah. Yeah, if we could.
Hey, Dallas,
Yeah.
DCI is going to be right up to visit with you.